Ladies and gentlemen, could I have your attention, please? Well, thank you for coming today. We have a beautiful day pressed in between some lousy weather, so thank Mother Nature for the sunshine. Before we get started, if you would please turn off any electronics that you may have so it does not disrupt the solemnity of the occasion. And to set an example, I'll turn mine off as well. This memorial today, once again, is being broadcast live on Civic Center TV, as well as on radio at 89.3 WBLD Lakes FM, here in the communities of West Bloomfield, Keego Harbor, Orchard Lake, and Sylvan Lake. If you know anybody that could not be here today that would like to watch this memorial, it can be watched at a later time. Just go to the internet at www.civiccentertv.com, or you can go to YouTube, type in West Bloomfield Police Memorial 2017, and you and your friends can watch it again. Longtime radio broadcaster and author, Paul Harvey Arant, better known to most of us as Paul Harvey, once broadcast a segment called, "What is a Policeman?" Now, many of you may have already seen it, but if you haven't, I'd like to paraphrase some of that broadcast. Mr. Harvey stated, "A policeman is a composite of what all men are, a mingling of saint and sinner, dust and deity." What that really means is that they are exceptional. They are unusual. They are not commonplace. He of all men is at once the most needed and the most wanted. A policeman must be a minister, a social worker, a diplomat, a tough guy, and a gentle man. For those who may not know, Mr. Harvey's father was a Tulsa, Oklahoma police officer who was killed in the line of duty. So Mr. Harvey understood from a very personal perspective what it means to be a law enforcement officer. We thank Mr. Harvey for his kind words. They were important then, and they are just as important today as our profession is again under attack by some members of the media, some of our politicians, and some of the quarters within our own community. Law enforcement deaths this year have risen 23% over the last year. And recent events in the city of Detroit and just yesterday in the city of Chicago remind us how dangerous this job is and how precious is life. So it warms our hearts and it lifts our spirits and renews our faith to see all of you here today who are here to remember and honor the brave men and women who have proudly served their communities and our country. And as always, please remember those not only who have died, but those who have been assaulted and suffer injuries, many permanent, that they will live with the rest of their lives. Please keep them in your thoughts and in your prayers. Right now, I would like to introduce some dear friends of ours, some great men, noble men who have supported us here at the Police Memorial for many, many years. Would you please give a warm welcome to the Knights of Columbus? Thank you, gentlemen. The bagpipes today are being played by Pipe Major Dave Martin of the St. Andrews Pipe Band of Detroit. Dave is also a big supporter, and we thank him for coming once again. Gentlemen, if you are not in uniform, I ask you to please remove your hats as we get ready to honor our country when the colors are presented by the West Bloomfield Police Honor Guard and a flyover by the aviation unit of the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, and the singing of the national anthem by local recording artist, the pride of Michigan and Metro Detroit, and a dear friend of the police department, Ms. Karen Newman. Officer McNeely, please bring the troops to attention.
Honor guard. say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Karen, very much for that beautiful rendition, as always. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome my dear friend and my boss, the top cop in West Bloomfield, a man who definitely needs no introduction. But once again, please welcome Chief of Police Mike Patton.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Special thanks to all of our federal, state, county, and local law enforcement officers, our public safety partners from the fire department, our elected and appointed officials that are here today, our residents, our retirees, our other township employees, our family and friends. Karen Newman, every time I hear you sing the national anthem, it moves to the point to where I just love our country even more than I already do. So thank you very much for being here today. Thank you. She's one of our great residents, and she helps us out in a lot of things. She's helped us out with our police foundation and our, recently on our West Bloomfield 911 show on Civic Center TV. So it's very appreciated very much. Judge Friedman is going to be our guest speaker today. I've been here over 30 years, and I can remember Judge Friedman was one of our district court judges at the 48th District Court back when it was further north on Telegraph Road. And I can remember going in and testifying in front of him in the courtroom there. And it was not hard to predict that he would move on to bigger and better things in his career. And the fact that you look at the compassion he had for people, and the fact that his tremendous, legal knowledge, and his keen wit that he would exercise inside the courtroom. And I can remember testifying there as a very nervous police officer sometimes, but it wasn't hard to see that he would move ahead. Now, I don't know, somewhere in the back of his mind, he was watching me testify, and he'd sit back and say, one day, that young officer will lose all of his hair and become the chief of police of West Bloomfield. Somewhere in the back of my mind, sustain me on this, Chief, somewhere in the back of your mind, that's what you were thinking. But thank you, Judge. Thanks for being here. We look forward to your remarks. It really is a privilege to be the chief of police here in West Bloomfield and to lead such a great team of police officers, dispatchers, public service aides, and civilian support staff. Every day, every member of the police department reports to work not knowing what's going to happen on their shift or to them. Every member does their job, and they do it well, placing the needs of others ahead of their own. And yes, in acknowledgement of their service, they deserve a round of applause. Thank you. As chief, I'm often asked to meet with the citizens and groups and things like that. Many have different interests and points of view, in particular different points of view about law enforcement. At these meetings, I'm frequently asked this question: Chief, what kind of policing does the West Bloomfield Police Department practice? That's an interesting question to try to answer, especially in a single word or phrase. There are a number of names, concepts, and catchphrases related to the various types or manners or methods of policing. But what does West Bloomfield do? I'll answer that question and also how it relates to today. First, we not only follow the law, but we also enforce the law. So essentially what we do is legal policing. But our profession also has values, and we adhere to a code of ethics. So what we do is also ethical policing, such as our code of ethics requires and compels us to enforce the law without fear or favor, malice or ill will. But Chief, someone will ask, what about the numbers? Do you do data-driven policing? Yes, we review relevant and meaningful crime and incident data that provides us some direction of how and where we do our work. That's nice, Chief, but it can't be just about the numbers. Do you do intelligence-led policing? Yes, we do that too. We develop leads, information, and intelligence to identify individuals that have committed crimes so we can introduce them into a criminal justice system. Okay, now, Chief, that sounds all well and good, but that sounds rather reactive and after the fact. What about crime prevention? Well, of course. We spend a lot of time engaging in crime and incident prevention and minimization efforts. We attempt to share what we know about crimes with others so that they become more aware and more resilient and are less likely to become a victim of a crime. A lot of this is done with our community partners, our fire department, the library, Parks and Rec, the schools, the hospital, Greater West Bloomfield Community Coalition, Youth Assistance, the Clergy Association, the Rotary Club, the Optimist Club, our Tuskegee Airmen, the West Bloomfield and Chaldean Chambers of Commerce, and many others. And it's all on Civic Center TV and radio and our Facebook and Twitter, too. Wow, Chief, you certainly have a lot of friends. But what are you really trying to accomplish? Do you engage in problem-oriented policing? Yes, we actively engage in solving problems in the township for individuals and for the township as a whole. Most have a direct nexus to our primary mission of law enforcement, but some relate to the overall quality of life in the community, such as substance abuse, mental health and suicide prevention, early childhood and public education, senior services, community blight, environmental and wildlife protection, helping those with financial hardships, and mentoring and role modeling. Chief, you mentioned the community. Does the West Bloomfield Police Department practice community policing? Now, I have to tell you, this one's a real popular one. It just sounds nice. And probably there's grant funding available if you say you go out and do it. But the answer is absolutely yes. Everything we do is for the community, our residents, our business owners, and our visitors. We are your hometown police department. Now, here's a tough one. Chief, is your department's type, manner, or method of policing politically correct? Well, the answer is no and yes, depending. Absolutely no, we're not engaged or motivated by politics. Remember, we pledge to enforce the law without fear or favor, malice or ill will. But a definite yes, if you mean that we treat every person with dignity and respect, regardless of what they think or say, what they look like, who they pray to, who they marry, or where they come from. We are everyone's police department. But Chief, what does the future hold? Do you engage in 21st century policing? While tomorrow is promised to no one, we remain committed to adopting and using the best equipment and technology, the best training, the best practices, and to hire and employ the best personnel, second to none. As the 21st century progresses, we remain ready and prepared to protect and serve our community. Okay, enough already, Chief. Answer the question, what kind of policing does the West Bloomfield Police Department practice? My current and best answer, the West Bloomfield Police Department practices constitutional policing. Constitutional policing encompasses all the other types, manners, or methods of policing. Constitutional policing embodies not only the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law. It helps maintain the fragile public trust between the police department and the public we serve, where citizens have confidence that their police officers are not just enforcing the law, but are also protecting and defending their individual rights and their freedom. It provides us with a framework to address everyone's policing concerns, as constitutional policing provides for the protection of one thing. As our guest, Judge Friedman, will say, or might say in one of his decisions, and Judge, overrule me if I'm wrong here, the Constitution does not protect places or things. It protects people. This leads us back to why we're here today. Each of the men and women that we remember today, regardless of what kind of policing they were engaged in, were protecting people. They risked their life and limb. They sacrificed their life and limb to protect people. And we remember and honor their risk and sacrifice today and forever. God bless America, and thank you for joining us today to remember.
Thank you, Chief, for those inspiring words. I'd like to welcome to the podium now the Reverend Dr. Paul Thwaite. Paul has been our chaplain for several years, and once you see him, if you don't know Paul, he's always the biggest man in the room, and that is completely appropriate because he also has the biggest heart in the room. He's a man whose stature and his heart is an indication of how much he truly cares for the men and the women of our agency, and we are all better for knowing him. Please welcome Chaplain Paul Thwaite.
Thank you very much, Rick and Chief. To illustrate your point, as I rode along with one of the officers in the department on Monday, and we engaged in a necessary arrest of an individual during that ride-along. As we were riding back to the station with that individual in the back seat, they commented and said, "I appreciate that the officers today treated me with civility and with respect. That hasn't always happened to me." So that was just an illustration recently of the nature of the individuals who serve in the West Bloomfield Police Department, and it's my honor and privilege to be able to support them. And it's my hope and prayer that in addition to the prayer I'm about to offer today for this department and for this event, that all of us, each time, even just a few moments ago as we heard sirens, will lift up and pray for those who are responding to emergency situations and who are being responded to, that we will on a regular basis remember and lift up not only our law enforcement community, but our fire and safety officers as well, our township officials, and all of those who exercise leadership responsibility on our behalf. So let us bow our hearts together in prayer. God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, God most compassionate, most merciful, most gracious, God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, we invoke your presence in this place and for this time today. We recognize and acknowledge you as the creator of all things, the sustainer of all life, the protector and the defender and the one who watches over and provides for us day by day and moment by moment. We give you thanks for the blessings that you have poured out in our lives. And today, as we come to remember those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in protecting the lives of people and communities, we give you thanks for those who are willing each day to go out and place their own lives at risk in order to serve and care for and defend others. We know the scriptures tell us that greater love has no one than this, than they lay down their life for a friend. And so we thank you today for those we will remember who have laid down their lives, not just for friends, but for those they do not even know. We pray today as well for your continuing protection and blessing over those who continue to serve. As they come and go, we pray that you will watch over them and that you will protect them, that you will give them the right words and the right attitudes to interact with and provide for those they oversee, and that you will hasten the day when remembering the names of those who have given their lives in this service will no longer be necessary. So bless and guide all that is said and done here in this time today, O God, we pray in your precious and holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Thwaite. I apologize for that. Today, I'd like to bring to the podium a very special man who's head of our township. On March 20th, the Township Board proclaimed this day as Law Enforcement Day in West Bloomfield. And it is my privilege to bring Township Supervisor Steve Kaplan to the podium. I've known Mr. Kaplan for many years. He's a proud supporter of the police department, a strong supporter of the police department, and as a prosecuting attorney, he has been a very active partner in the fight against those who harm others or take advantage of the weak and vulnerable. It is my great pleasure to bring him to the podium today for the first time as a township supervisor to read the proclamation by the Township Board. Please welcome Supervisor Steve Kaplan.
Thanks, Rick. Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure for me and a real honor to serve on the board along with 6 fine individuals. Jim Manna, trustee, could not be here today because of illness, but I would like to recognize my colleagues. The 3 trustees have full-time jobs, but they give to the community. They probably spend 20 to 30 hours per week preparing for meetings and whatever else they do as trustees and benefiting the community. So I would like to recognize Trustee Howard Rosenberg, Trustee Diane Swimmer, and Trustee Jonathan Warshay. Oh, Jim Manna. And Trustee Jim Manna, off the deathbed, he's here today. Welcome, Jim. And also Debbie Binder, Township Clerk, and Terry Weingarten, Township Treasurer. Welcome. Whereas the 1920s were the deadliest decade in law enforcement, where 2,417 officers died. In the period from 1932 to 1934, John Dillinger and his gang murdered 10 law enforcement officers. The New York City Police Department has lost more law enforcement officers in the line of duty, 701, and the state of Texas has lost more law enforcement officers by state, 1,695 deaths. Included among the number of law enforcement officers who have died in the law of duty are 633 correctional officers and 34 military law enforcement officers. In the history of law enforcement, 280 female officers also have lost their lives. On average, over the last 10 years, there have been 58,930 assaults against law enforcement, resulting in 15,404 injuries. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the 7 members of the West Bloomfield Township Board, we proclaim Wednesday, May 3, 2017 as Law Enforcement Day in West Bloomfield. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we remember my name, law enforcement officers who have died since our last memorial. Many of these heroics were lost in the fog of history and have only recently been discovered as well. Of those, 3 were killed overseas while fighting the war on terror. Most of the heroes today have roots to the Great Lakes state, and most served a Michigan agency. But we also remember a federal officer who was killed on Michigan's waterways, and several sons of Michigan who chose to serve in other states. We also remember a hero who was an inspiration to his famous son, and that son, of course, became a national figure who inspired us all with his wit and his wisdom. Lost, but not forgotten. Special Deputy Marshal Christopher Keenan, United States Department of Justice, United States Marshal Service. End of watch, November 9th, 1913. Lost, but not forgotten. Officer Harry H. Arant, Tulsa, Oklahoma Police Department. End of watch, December 20th, 1921. Lost, but not forgotten. Railroad Detective Benjamin J. Coles, Grand Trunk Railroad Police Department. End of watch, September 15th, 1930. Lost, but not forgotten. Sheriff Joseph J. Murray, Huron County Sheriff's Office. End of watch, June 2nd, 1932. Lost, but not forgotten. Under Sheriff Guy Argel Fuller, Grand Traverse County Sheriff's Office. End of watch, July 1st, 1958. Lost, but not forgotten. Staff Sergeant James Dennis McNaughton, United States Army Military Police Corps. End of watch, August 2nd, 2005. Lost, but not forgotten, Senior Airman Casey Elena Ruiz, United States Air Force Security Forces. End of watch, October 2nd, 2015. Lost, but not forgotten, Senior Airman Nathan Cole Sartain, United States Air Force Security Forces. End of watch, October 2nd, 2015. Lost, but not forgotten, Trooper Chad Philip Dermeyer, Virginia State Police. End of watch, March 31st, 2016. Lost, but not forgotten, Deputy Sheriff Michael Winter, Branch County Sheriff's Office. End of watch, May 31st, 2016. Lost, but not forgotten, Police Officer Michael Kroll, Dallas, Texas Police Department. End of watch, July 7th, 2016. Lost, but not forgotten, Security Supervisor Joseph Zangaro, Berrien County Sheriff's Department. End of watch, July 11th, 2016. Lost, but not forgotten, Court Officer Ronald Kinzel, Berrien County Sheriff's Department. End of watch, July 11th, 2016. Lost, but not forgotten, Sergeant Kenneth Stile, Detroit Police Department. End of watch, September 17th, 2016. Lost, but not forgotten, Sergeant Alan Brandt, Fairbanks, Alaska Police Department. End of watch, October 28th, 2016. Lost, but not forgotten, Police Officer Myron Jarrett, Detroit Police Department. End of watch, October 28th, 2016. Lost, but not forgotten, Sergeant Colin James Rose, Wayne State University Police Department. End of watch, November 23rd, 2016. Rest in peace, my brothers and my sister. May you live eternally with our God in paradise, and may your names forever be enshrined in America's memory. We would also like to remember one of our extended family who died a natural death, did not die in the line of duty, but this man gave a lifetime of dedicated service to a neighboring community in our beloved state. We remember Detective Sergeant Robert M. Stevens, who departed this life on December 7, 2016. Detective Sergeant Stevens spent 22 years as a member of the Dearborn Heights Police Department. He began his career as a police cadet before being promoted to police officer. He proved his mettle through hard work and a high degree of professional service to his community. As a result, he was promoted to corporal and then completed his career as detective sergeant. He was such an inspiration that both of his sons followed in their father's footsteps. Younger son Joseph also became a Dearborn Heights police officer. But that which gives him a special place in the West Bloomfield police family is that his older son is our very own police officer, Bob Stevens. Our next speaker has somewhat been introduced by the chief already, the Honorable Bernard Friedman of the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Michigan. Judge Friedman is well known throughout Oakland County and beyond. He was born in Detroit and then served with the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office before presiding as a judge, as Chief Patton said, here in our own 48th District Court. You know, Judge, that's something we have in common. We're both Detroit and Wayne County boys who landed on our feet coming here to Oakland County. He was appointed to the federal court by President Ronald Reagan in 1988, and he became Chief Judge in 2004. He's received many awards and honors throughout his career, far too many to mention here, but I would be remiss not to mention a couple. In 1990, he was named one of Michigan's 25 most respected judges by Lawyers Weekly, and he also received the State of Israel Eleanor Roosevelt Humanities Award. We who know him aren't surprised by all of this, as he received his legal training at the Michigan State University Detroit College of Law. Go Green. And we're pleased to welcome a good friend to us all, the Honorable Bernard Friedman.
Why, thank you. Chief, I'm working on becoming chief. Maybe not too much further, and I will be there. So, you know, ladies and gentlemen, as I was sitting there, first of all, let me thank the township and acknowledge the supervisor and the trustees and the distinguished guests and everybody that came today for this memorial. And, of course, all of the officers that are here representing all of the officers throughout the country. It's a special day for me today because I, right out of law school, started representing police officers, police associations, and did that for many, many years, and feel a very, very special place in my heart for police officers. And every time I read in the paper about a police officer getting injured or a police officer, God forbid, getting killed, it takes a part of me. And so when I was invited to come today, it really meant a lot to me. This is a very special occasion, and special to me in terms of the memorial, in terms of remembering. And as I was sitting there today, you know, and I'm going to go to my regular speech in a second, but I really have to say this because I sit in a court where we see a lot of what we call police cases, and I see so many, more than ever happening, frivolous lawsuits against police officers, totally frivolous lawsuits. And people file those, including attorneys, and they don't realize that police officers are not only strong and there to protect us, but they're also human beings. And nobody wants to be sued for something that they have not done. And I just sat there, and I'm looking at all the fine police officers and citizens and so forth. And in a way, I think that we also have to remember those that are still living, too, and that every day go through not only their police work, but also the fact that they're often sued for things that they had nothing to do with. And though they always come into court and have a very strong front, it's got to hurt. Anyhow, that wasn't really part of my speech, but as I sat there today and saw all the officers in here, I want them to know that we in federal court know that, and we know that it happens, and we know that you, in a lot of ways, are being abused. I just have to say that because nobody ever talks about it, and I think it's important. I'm honored to have been asked to be part of the event, allowing me the opportunity to recognize our fine law enforcement officers and remember all of the officers who have fallen in the line of duty. Each year, our nation loses 140 to 160 officers in the line of duty. Even one is too much. It just can't keep happening. In 1962, 55 years ago, President John F. Kennedy proclaimed with the unanimous concurrence of Congress that there shall be a National Police Week to recognize our law enforcement community. In 1994, President Clinton signed a law proclaiming that during National Police Week, all flags on government property shall be flown at half-mast to acknowledge, honor, and mourn the loss of all law enforcement officers who were killed in the line of duty. Our society and our citizens pay special tribute each year to all of those who have given their lives to the safety of our community and to preserve the Constitution and the American way of life. We in West Bloomfield are fortunate that we have a police department that has a long tradition of excellence. I've lived in this community for over 40 years. I was a judge in this community for 6 years, and we have one of the finest police departments. I've been pulled over by them. They've been kind, so I know what their demeanor is. For years after I left the 48th, because I knew most of the police officers and I was a runner, I would wave at every police car. And then I realized that most of those people have retired. And I still wave at the police cars, and they still wave back, knowing not who I am or anything of that nature. But it shows the kind of people that we have. And it's such a good feeling just to wave at a police officer, and they wave back like they know me. And it does my ego a lot of good, but I think it does our community a lot of good, because that's the kind of officers that we have in the West Bloomfield community. On May 15th of each year, our nation pauses to recognize the more than 20,000 men and women who have been killed while protecting our nation, allowing us to enjoy all of our freedoms, which have preciously been given to us by the Constitution. The job of a police officer has become more dangerous every day. We have certain groups and members of society who are spewing demoralizing and false anti-police rhetoric, making a police officer's job far more difficult and dangerous. And yet our police officers continue to work vigorously and with total dedication. The unfounded assault on police officers by these groups is disturbing the law enforcement community and our community, and is unfair to them individually and as a profession. But their professionalism continues to drive them to the highest standards. Let's take a moment to remember our own Sergeant O'Rourke, who gave his life for our community and our country. We send our blessings and condolences to his wife, children, and family. We recognize all who have fallen in the line of duty, and those who get up every morning, 7 days, 24 hours a day, to protect us. May we remember the fallen and send our appreciation and prayers to all law enforcement officers, for they are the front line in protecting us and our way of life. May God be with them. Thank you.
Thanks, Judge. Folks, as my partner explained to you guys a little bit earlier, we're going to do what's called a rifle volley. So those of you that have little ones, let them know or try to grab them up. It will be loud. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you all to stand at this time. I'm going to give you a brief history of the volley. It came through the Roman era, okay? At the end of the day, when the battlefield was beginning to be cleared, if they knew the name of the soldier, they would shout their name 3 times as their bodies were being cleared in remembrance for the sacrifice. Honor Guard, uniformed personnel, attention. Honor Guard, prepare to fight!
Please be seated. We'd like to thank our trumpeters today, two fine young men. Trumpeter Mark Stout II from the University of Michigan Marching Band and trumpeter William Eflin from the Clarkston High School Band. Today, I'd now like to bring up to the podium Pastor Brian William of the West Bloomfield United Methodist Church. I've come to know Pastor William over the last few years, not only as a man who shepherds his own flock at his church, but someone who's concerned about the greater community, as he also serves as the chairman of the West Bloomfield Clergy Association, or West Bloomfield Clergy Community Forum. His church is blessed to have him as their spiritual leader, and we are blessed to have him here with us today. Please welcome Pastor Brian William.
Let us close our time with prayer. God, we are thankful. We're thankful for the blue skies, for the sunshine, for this beautiful day that you've given us, and we do not take it for granted. We're grateful to have it. We're grateful, God, for every day of life, and we're grateful for that reminder that each and every day of our life is a risk. Each and every day of our work is a risk. Each and every day of our ministry is a risk. Each and every day of our service is a risk. And yet you remind us, God, that it is a risk worth taking. Help us have the strength. Help us have the courage. Help us have the confidence to face the risk of each day, making sure that we do all that we can, all that we are able to do, to make our community stronger, to make our nation better, and to make our world a more loving and just place in which we may live. It's in the name that we offer, of your name, that we offer these things, and that we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor William. At this time, the Knights of Columbus would like to lay a wreath at the West Bloomfield Police Memorial, and they will be accompanied by the music of Pipe Major Dave Martin of the St. Andrews Pipe Band of Detroit. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here today. This concludes the 2017 Police Memorial Service. We'd ask you to remain where you are until the Honor Guard and Knights of Columbus have left the area. On behalf of Chief Michael Patton and the entire West Bloomfield Police Department, we thank everyone for attending this service. We wish to thank also those who work in the field of public safety, our brothers and sisters in the West Bloomfield Fire Department, Fire Chief Greg Flynn, Assistant Fire Chief Andy Besna, and the rest who work with us day to day, hand in hand. And we want to thank all of the uniformed personnel who have come here today and joined us to stand in honoring our fallen heroes. especially if you belong to an agency whose member was listed in the roll call of heroes. We are grateful to the family and friends of the brave men and women who have fallen for sharing this day with us. We'd also like to extend a special thank you to all who participated in today's service. The Aviation Unit of the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, the Honorable Bernard Friedman, Supervisor Steve Kaplan, Pastor Brian William, the Knights of Columbus, my brother Knights, Pipe Major Dave Martin of the St. Andrews Pipe Band of Detroit, Ms. Karen Newman, Trumpeter Mark Stout II of the University of Michigan Marching Band, and Trumpeter William Eflin of the Clarkston High School Band, and of course our very own chaplain, Paul Thwaite. And as always, we thank each and every one of you, our dear family and friends who have supported us, not just today, but throughout the year and always, for taking this time to be with us. Your support, your presence speaks volumes and means so much to us, especially in this day and age as law enforcement deaths continue to rise. And as we say goodbye, please remember, take care of each other, be safe, and love one another, for tomorrow is promised to no one. Thank you, and God bless.